We all develop habits as we age, so it's not just about wrinkles or slowing down. Have you ever pondered why some individuals seem to become more isolated as they age, while others remain surrounded by love and connection? Most of us don't even realize we're doing them until it's too late. But the good news is that you can change them. This video will show you how to dive into the ugly habits that no one talks about, the ones that creep into your life and steal your joy, your health, and your closeness with others. Small, cunning ones that can subtly push people away, can ruin relationships and make life harder than it needs to be. We're going to uncover 9 surprising traps that could be affecting you or someone you love right now, along with easy, doable solutions to break free. The 7th one will shock you. You'll meet Julie, a 71-year-old retired librarian, whose story reveals how these habits took hold and how she turned it all around. The majority of people miss until they've paid a heavy price, and at the end you'll face a problem that could change your life. Begin today and stay tuned to learn how to recognize harmful behaviors before they take over. How to mature with purpose rather than sorrow, and how to reestablish relationships you believe were lost. Hit the like button if you've never felt trapped, detached, or simply wondering what's preventing you from moving forward. Subscribe and let's get started. Because the longer you wait, the harder it gets to change. If you haven't subscribed, I suggest doing so and turning on the bell notifications so you don't miss any videos. Your support is greatly appreciated. If you like this video, please share it and like it. If you like the topic of this video, please leave a comment. If not, please leave a comment with 0 to let me know how I can make better videos for you. Now let's start. Number 1. Crucial. Sarah never thought she would become the kind of person who harbored negativity. She always thought of herself as someone who just spoke her mind and was honest with those around her. However, as the years went by, she noticed something changing within herself. At first, it was just a small sigh here, a brief complaint there, but eventually it became a pattern that she couldn't ignore. The morning began with the familiar aches and pains of aging, and she would mutter to herself about getting older. At first, it was a harmless grumble, wasn't it? But it quickly permeated other parts of her day. She had watched the news, her frustration growing with each new report, feeling overwhelmed with a sense of helplessness and anger about the state of the world. And when she spoke to her younger relatives, her words turned sharp. She didn't realize at first how it was affecting her relationships because it seemed harmless enough, just honest opinions, right? But gradually, friends started avoiding in-depth conversations because they knew it would result in another tirade. And even her grandchildren, who had once been eager to see her, started to make excuses not to spend time with her. What Sarah didn't realize at the time was the slow and sneaky drain of her negativity. No matter how justified, nobody wants to leave a conversation feeling worse than when they arrived. And the truth is that negativity, like a weight, pulls people down, making them recoiling rather than connecting. Things that were once second nature, like driving, shopping, or even using a smartphone, can suddenly become sources of frustration, venting, and life can feel overwhelming as the world changes around us, especially when things don't always seem to make sense or feel comfortable. Negativity can feel like a release, but when it becomes your default mode, it turns into a barrier that separates you rather than a means of processing your feelings. Here's how to change this energy. Start conversations with something constructive rather than complaining. You might also want to start with gratitude. Either the gorgeous sunset last night or the fact that I woke up feeling good today might be included in your daily observations. People are drawn to people who lift them up rather than drag them down, so when you need to vent, set boundaries. Give yourself a few minutes to vent, and then move on to something more constructive. Curiosity is far more potent than criticism. Positive energy has a way of spreading. Ask inquiries, especially about subjects you don't understand, rather than brushing off your grandchildren's interests in games or apps. This builds rapport with them, rather than alienates them. Conversations lasted longer. People started opening up to Sarah again, and gradually, the warmth of connection that had been missing returned when Sarah began making these minor adjustments that led to positivity, genuine interest in her grandchildren's lives, and more frequent expressions of gratitude. She initially discovered, sadly, that the energy you send into the world is the energy you receive. Thus, if you want to connect, you must offer it. It begins with your speech, your appearance, and your perspective on the world. The second is disregarding personal hygiene and appearance. Sarah used to enjoy dressing up and took pride in her appearance. always picking the ideal outfit, applying makeup flawlessly, and making sure her hair was styled just right before leaving the house. She had a collection of gorgeous blouses in every color and a signature scent that she wore with confidence. But as the things started to alter throughout the years, starting with little things, over time she found herself staying in her house clothes all day and rarely looking in the mirror. She told herself that it didn't matter, but something was changing inside of her. She started to feel different, and it wasn't just about how others saw her. It was about how she saw herself. She started to ask herself why bother, skipping hair appointments, or choosing comfortable baggy clothes over the stylish outfits she used to wear. When Sarah looked at old pictures of herself, she hardly recognized the vibrant woman she once was. Where had she gone? What had happened to the woman who exuded joy and confidence? Strangers who used to compliment her on her colorful outfits now hardly made eye contact, and friends who had once invited her out to lunch or a movie started asking her to join less frequently. The reality she had not quite understood was that our self-perception and how we show ourselves to the outside world both influence how others see us. Self-respect and respecting who you are, regardless of age, are what personal appearance is all about. It's about putting yourself first, feeling good about yourself and saying, I matter. How can you reverse this? Start with modest, doable actions. Put on clean, well-fitting clothing that makes you feel good about yourself, even if you're not going someplace special. A designer outfit isn't necessary. Showering, clipping your nails, and combing your hair. These tiny gestures of kindness convey a strong message to yourself. I am worthy of this effort. Wearing something you enjoy or that makes you happy can lift your spirits. Even little things like a beloved piece of jewelry or a spritz of perfume can have a big impact, since they remind you of the identity of the woman you have always been and continue to become. Sarah noticed a magical change when she resumed her simple routines of brushing her hair, wearing her favorite blouse, and even applying a little lipstick. She felt lighter, more confident, and yes, even beautiful again. People started to smile at her when she entered a room, and she felt seen. More importantly, though, she felt like herself again. It was as if the vibrant woman she had thought she had lost was subtly making a comeback, not only in the eyes of others but also in her own. Number 3, becoming obstinate and unwilling to adapt. If you are still watching this video and find these teachings helpful, please leave a comment below to let me know you are still with me. Sarah had always prided herself on being someone who knew exactly what she liked and how she liked it. She was set in her ways, and that had always been her comfort zone. Why change what worked for decades? But when her children and grandchildren started communicating through text messages instead of phone calls, Sarah resisted. I don't need to learn all that, she would say, dismissing their offers to teach her. If they want to talk to me, they can pick up the phone. But over time, those phone calls became fewer and fewer. Family updates, pictures, and birthday reminders began arriving, only in group chats. She refused to join. She didn't realize it at first, but she was shutting herself off from the people she loved most. It wasn't just about technology. It was about staying connected, about being a part of their lives, about love. But Sarah's stubbornness had begun to isolate her. The truth is, change is inevitable. Life moves forward, and it's easy to feel resistant when it feels like the world is leaving you behind. The trick, however, is to stay open. It's easy to say, I don't need. That being said, there is a subtle power in saying, I'll try to say yes to change no matter how small, which keeps you interested, keeps you adroit. It's not necessary to become an expert right away. Begin with minor details. Instead of resisting change, embrace it and allow your grandchildren teach you how to text or watch a show they enjoy. You won't realize what you're missing until you give it a try. Sarah was shocked by how easy it was to learn how to text from her granddaughter. What shocked her even more, though, was the influx of connections she had been missing. Daily pictures of her great-grandchildren, inside jokes, and quick check-ins that made her feel like she belonged. By letting go of her resistance, Sarah was able to embrace something far more valuable than new technology connections. Staying in contact with the people that cared most was more important than simply learning how to text. By doing this, she was able to access new forms of communication and discover a greater sense of love and connection in her relationships. The fourth is hoarding and not letting go of clutter. Every item in Sarah's home had a story, a memory, or a piece of the past that she couldn't bear to part with. For example, old birthday cards that hadn't been seen in decades, stacks of newspapers she had promised herself she would read someday, and clothes she hadn't worn in years, but she couldn't let go of them just in case. Over the years, her once cozy home, which had been a peaceful sanctuary, had turned into an overwhelming maze of things that cluttered every corner, shelf, and room. At first, Sarah didn't think there was a problem. She convinced herself that everything had value, and she would frequently tell herself that she might need it someday. However, in reality, the overwhelming clutter had started to suffocate her home, her peace, and her spirit. As time went on, the mere act of cleaning and sorting through the piles was making it harder and harder for her to maintain her house, find what she needed, and even invite people over without feeling embarrassed by the mess. Her once inviting space was now a reminder of how she had become stuck in the past and unwilling to let go of things that no longer served her. And her daughter gently suggested that perhaps you should consider letting go of a few things. In actuality, the clutter didn't just fill her home. It also started to fill her mind with the stress of carrying so much weight on her, preventing her from enjoying the present and clouding her sense of peace. It wasn't just about things. It was about the emotional baggage she had accumulated along with them. Sarah resisted with all of her strength, asking herself, what if I need them later? The truth is that holding on to too much, whether it be material belongings or emotional baggage, can make you feel trapped in the past and unable to move forward or embrace the present. It's a silent thief that robs you of clarity and peace of mind. Letting go is never easy, especially when it feels like a piece of your heart is attached to every item. Sarah eventually understood that she needed to let go in order to be fully free once more. Breaking free from clutter takes time, kindness toward oneself, and the guts to realize that you don't need everything you've been clinging to. But how does one even start to get rid of this overwhelming mess? One drawer, one shelf, one box at a time. Begin with a modest task. Decluttering everything at once may seem like an overwhelming process, but it becomes more palatable when broken down into smaller, more manageable pieces. Consider whether I utilize something and whether it makes me happy. If not, it's time to say goodbye. Give away stuff that can be used to others. Recycle items that are no longer needed, or pass on sentimental treasures. To decluttering becomes a habit and a routine for family members who will value them. Decide on a modest objective. The practical side of it all is that clutter can be hazardous, increasing the chance of falls, accidents, and injuries. Getting rid of one item every day is a simple but continuous activity that can eventually result in a significant transformation. Sarah finally made the decision to declutter. Something magical happened. The weight was lifted off her shoulders, and the transformation was more than just physical. She recycled old magazines and donated clothes she hadn't worn in years. A home shouldn't just be a place to live. It should be a place where you feel safe, at ease, and at peace. Number 5. Gathering dust and arranging her living space so that it was easier to find the things that really mattered. And you know what? For the first time in years, Sarah felt at peace in her home. It wasn't just cleaner, it was lighter, brighter, and more welcoming. She also felt a new sense of freedom, which came from letting go of the past and embracing the present. And most importantly, she was thrilled to invite friends over again, something she hadn't felt in a long time. Sarah never considered herself to be impatient. Instead, she always made an effort to be understanding, forgiving, and kind. However, over time, she became aware of tiny cracks in her patience, brief episodes in which her annoyance rose, and she became agitated. When the young cashier at the grocery store was taking his time fumbling with the bags while she was standing in line with a cart full of stuff. One afternoon, Sarah felt irritated and thought, "Why is he so slow? Can't he move a little faster?" Her temper rising, she blurted out the words before she could stop them. "Come on, would you hurry up?" She felt a pang of guilt as soon as she finished speaking because she saw the cashier's face drop. He looked down at her, his hands shaking a little as he tried to finish his task. It dawned on her that this young man was nervous and trying his hardest. And now she was snapping at him, as if he were the source of her stress. Was she turning into the person she used to despise? The one who was quick to judge, quick to snap, and slow to show grace. It's difficult to realize that as we get older, we can easily lose patience with others because life moves at a different pace. It can be frustrating when things around us don't happen as quickly as we would like, but the truth is that impatience makes life harder for us as well, because it increases stress, impairs judgment, and taints our interactions with others. How can we learn to remain patient and kind, especially when life seems to be moving too slowly? The first step is to simply stop before you react. When you feel irritated, take a deep breath and ask yourself, is this worth getting upset over? Keep in mind that the cashier fumbling with the bags could be a student trying their best, and the slow driver could be someone's grandfather. A little patience goes a long way. Try changing your attitude the next time you feel angry. Instead of yelling, offer a smile, a kind word, or just a simple take your time. Sarah did this the next time she saw the same young cashier. She smiled, told him he was doing a great job, and complimented him on his efforts. His face brightened, and Sarah realized how powerful kindness can be. It doesn't take much to lighten someone's day. After all, patience is more than simply a talent. Number 6. Over-talking and not listening. Sarah had always loved to talk, had a wealth of stories to share, advice to give, and memories to relive over the years. She had become known as the storyteller in the family, but she didn't realize how often she dominated the conversations. Also, choosing patience over frustration is a gift to ourselves as well. I enjoy talking to you, but sometimes I don't feel heard, her daughter said to her mother one day after she had been calling less and less. It seems like our calls are all about you, and I never get to express what's on my mind. Sarah was astounded that she hadn't noticed that she would interrupt them every time they spoke to share her personal tales, experiences, and advice without even listening. Oh! As we age, it's easy to fall into the trap of believing we have all the answers and that we want to share our life's lessons and impart the wisdom we've accumulated over the years. But if we don't take the time to listen to truly hear our loved ones, we risk pushing them away. In reality, Sarah had become so focused on sharing her wisdom that she had neglected to give her daughter the opportunity to speak and be heard. Balance is the key to having better interactions, and Sarah had to acknowledge that in her eagerness to share, she had inadvertently distanced herself from those she loved most. Don't just talk. Listen. If you've been talking for a long, stop and ask how things are going for you. Try to be really interested in what the other person is saying. Avoid interrupting, even if you have a fascinating tale to share. Give them room. When Sarah spoke to her daughter, she made a conscious effort to listen, asking more questions, giving her the floor, and only giving advice when it was really needed. The results were nothing short of amazing. Their conversations became longer, warmer, and more meaningful. To speak, ask open-ended questions that invite real conversation instead of just asking how you're doing. Try asking what's something exciting that happened this week. Sarah discovered the beauty of connection number 7 by pushing people away rather than asking for help. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons helpful, please leave a comment below to let me know that you are still with me. Sarah discovered that the best conversations aren't about talking more but about listening better. Being fiercely independent was something Sarah had always taken pride in. It was her identity and way of life. She had spent decades raising her children with all the love she could muster, running a busy household efficiently, and even lending a helping hand to neighbors in need. However, as the years went by, something began to change, and simple tasks that had previously come so naturally to her started to feel like insurmountable challenges. She was struggling to lift a heavy grocery bag from her car one afternoon, her arms shaking from the weight. A young man passing by saw her struggle, and with a kind smile, offered to help. Need a hand? He asked Sarah, and she forced a smile and shook her head, saying, "No thank you, I've got it." But she didn't. As she dragged the heavy bag inside, the pain in her back grew worse, and she felt more alone and frustrated than ever before. The psychological costs of turning down someone's generosity. Later that night, as she sat in the silence of her home, The painful realization struck her like a cold gust of wind. Sarah had pushed away someone who was merely trying to help someone who saw her struggle and wanted to ease it, and in that moment, she felt more alone than ever before. Her refusal to accept help and ask for it wasn't making her stronger, rather it was gradually dragging her away from the very connections that had once brought her comfort. She was choosing isolation over connection. Why is asking for assistance a show of strength rather than weakness when independence is preferred over interdependence? Asking for help doesn't make you a burden, it gives others the chance to show you love and support. People sincerely want to help, but if you keep ignoring them, eventually they will stop, and you'll be left feeling not only emotionally, but physically exhausted. Accepting help builds connections and fosters relationships. Bridges between hearts creates moments of shared humanity that transcend the task at hand, whether it's holding a door open, lifting a heavy load, or lending an understanding ear. It serves as a reminder that we are not meant to struggle alone, and that when you let others feel useful, you're giving them a gift. Sarah realized she needed to change, and the next time someone offered to help, she promised herself she would stop being so arrogant and say yes. The next time she was at the store and saw that young man again, she smiled warmly and said, "Actually, I could use a little help today." His face brightened, and as he took the bag from her hands, Sarah's smile returned. In that straightforward exchange, Sarah felt a weight lift, not from her back, but from her heart. She felt seen, appreciated, and most importantly, connected. Have you ever struggled to ask for help or experienced the joy of giving it to someone else? It's a humbling experience that reminds us that we are all in this together, and it's okay to let others in. Number 8, because they are too frugal to enjoy life. Sarah had always been the epitome of finance. Despite having a comfortable amount of money saved, she had a persistent worry in the back of her mind. What if I need this money later? What if something unexpected happens? It was a never-ending cycle of saving. But what was the point of building wealth if she wasn't using it to live the life she had always dreamed of? She clipped coupons with enthusiasm, skipped vacations with ease, and hesitated long before making any unnecessary purchases. Emily, Sarah's best friend, invited her to spend a weekend in the country. It seems like so much fun. Sarah, with delight in her voice, Emily remarked, "We'll explore, eat delicious food, and just relax." Sarah's her first reaction was to say no because traveling and dining out required financial outlays. The thought of regretting such a purchase made her nervous, but a tiny voice in the back of her mind asked, "When was the last time I treated myself in 4 years?" Sarah had always saved for that one day, but as she stood there looking at Emily's invitation, she couldn't help but think, what may happen if that day never arrived? If I'm dead now, what am I saving for, and why did I do this? Having fun with your finances is important. Being financially prudent is vital, but life is about living life to the fullest, not simply conserving money. Traveling and engaging in hobbies bring more lasting joy than any material property ever could. According to studies, spending money on activities makes memories that last long after the purchase is forgotten, whereas material possessions like clothing and electronics depreciate with time. Sarah had put forth a lot of effort throughout her life to reach this point of financial security, but without fulfillment, security is like an empty vessel. Balance is the key to a well-rounded life. Sarah decided to give herself permission to spend money on life's little pleasures, whether it was a spontaneous hobby, a weekend getaway, or a dinner out. She vowed to prioritize experiences that nourished her soul, and even set aside a fun fund and account specifically for her enjoyment the next time Emily asked her to go on the weekend trip. This is because enjoying the fruits of your labor honors your accomplishments rather than diminishing them. When Sarah finally said yes, she realized that this was what she had been saving for all along. She laughed more during those 2 days than she had in months, felt the sun on her face, tasted the joy of good food with good company, and most importantly, remembered how to live life to the fullest. She watched the sunset with Emily and realized that this was what she had been saving for all along. What experiences have you been delaying because of money? Life isn't waiting for you to be ready. The time is now. Number 9, speaking down to younger generations.
Money was supposed to support her happiness, not just stay undisturbed in a bank. Sarah loved her grandson Noah, and his visits were the highlight of her week. She loved learning about his school life, hobbies, and most importantly, his love of video games. However, in recent years, those visits have felt more distant, and their conversations have become awkward. She even noticed that Noah was less eager to talk and more interested in his phone than in their time together. One afternoon, Noah showed her a new app, and she was thrilled. Roughly without giving it much thought, Sarah shook her head and sighed. In my day, we didn't need all this technology. The kids went outside to play instead of staring at screens all day. Noah became quiet, and after a few minutes, he muttered, "I should probably get going." The door clicked shut behind him, leaving Sarah alone. Even though she hadn't intended to push him away, her words, which were meant to share wisdom, instead made him feel invalidated. In her attempt to connect, she had unwittingly created a wall between them. Why does talking down to younger generations alienate them? It's easy to get caught up in nostalgia for the good old days, but telling younger people over and over again that things were better in the past can make them feel as though their struggles and experiences are unimportant. Rather than promoting understanding, this causes division. Every generation has its own set of difficulties and struggles, and rather than condemning them for them, we ought to assist and encourage them. How can Sarah break this pattern the next time? Sarah took a deep breath and responded, "That sounds interesting, tell me more." Rather than dismissing it, Sarah chose curiosity and made an effort to learn about his world. Her questions made him feel heard, and when Noah described his gaming technique, Sarah felt heard. For the first time in a long time, they enjoyed a moment of genuine connection and communicated freely. What about you? Have you ever found it difficult to relate to younger generations? They connected, not through criticism, but through mutual respect. Sometimes understanding them, seeing the world through their eyes, and meeting them where they are. Number 10 is what helped close the gap rather than trying to change them. To regrets and resentments, holding on to regrets and grudges is like carrying a heavy weight that gradually wears you down. It's not just a mental burden, it permeates every aspect of your life, robbing you of your current happiness and distorting your viewpoint. Each time you let yourself think about those old wounds, you're denying yourself the beauty of the present moment. Have you ever caught yourself remembering a past injustice or betrayal, and suddenly, you're not only reliving the pain, but it's like the world around you dims a little? That's the grip of resentment. The more you clutch onto those negative memories, the more distant you become from the love and joy that surrounds you today. It's painful to admit, but bitterness can quietly erode relationships. It creeps in almost unnoticed, making it harder to connect with those you care about. And without realizing it, that resentment grows into a wall that divides you from your loved ones. In the worst cases, it turns into anger, which builds over time until your heart feels hardened and you're left wondering why you feel so alone, even in a crowd. And let's not forget about the toll it takes on your health. Grudges and regrets are more than just emotional baggage. There's stress that lingers in your body. The constant tension and negativity can raise your blood pressure, disturb your sleep, and even damage your immune system. You can try to ignore it, but deep down you know it's affecting you. There's no running away from the consequences of holding on to past pain. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 3 below to let me know that you are still here with me. So how do you let go and find the emotional freedom you so deeply deserve? It starts with accepting the harsh truth that the past can't be undone. What's done is done, and no matter how many times you replay the moments in your mind, they won't change. Instead of asking, "Why did this
Occur to me?" It's difficult to change your perspective. But when you catch yourself reverting to old patterns of resentment, stop and refocus your thoughts to something constructive in the present. You could write a letter outlining everything you've been holding inside, tear it up, burn it, or let it burn. Try asking yourself what you can learn from this in order to free yourself from the grip of the past and empower yourself to shape a future that's healthier and happier. Forgiveness is important, not for the person who hurt you, but for yourself. Knowing that it's time to let go of all you owe yourself, drift away. This journey is demonstrated by Sarah's tale. After carrying the weight of her past hurts for 4 years, one evening she decided it was time to let it all go. She wrote down all of her regrets and wounds on a piece of paper, and then she took a deep breath and let them go. At that moment, something inside of her changed, and for the first time in a long time, she felt lighter. Now that the burden that had been holding her back for years has been removed, she may move on. 11th, ignoring health issues. Ignoring health issues can appear to be a practical way to, at first, people prefer to run away rather than confront the notion that anything is amiss. But this avoidance and denial can be quite harmful. When we ignore minor symptoms, the body may be alerting us to something far more serious than the dizziness you've been experiencing. Dehydration or, worse, an early stroke symptom could be the cause. That fatigue you keep blaming on aging may actually be an undetected heart condition. We frequently tell ourselves that it's nothing or that it will go away, but the reality is that skipping checkups now will only cause problems later. Minor problems that go neglected grow into serious health emergencies. Why do we wait? Why do we tell ourselves that ignoring something that doesn't seem quite right is acceptable? Perhaps we are too preoccupied with everything else to pay attention to our bodies, or perhaps we are scared of what we might hear. But the truth is that ignoring those warning signs doesn't make them go away. Rather, it simply makes them worse. Making minor lifestyle changes, such as eating better or exercising frequently, might help us avoid life-altering situations. Prevention is always simpler than crisis management. The gift of self-love and care is health scare prevention, which we all too frequently ignore. After her fall, which left her in the hospital with severe pain, Sarah realized how easily she had neglected her health. She had assumed that the dizziness was a normal part of growing older, but that painful wake-up call made her see things differently. She made a commitment to herself that she would never again ignore the little signs that her body was telling her to take better care of herself. She also stopped putting her health on the back burner and began drinking more water, taking balance classes, and making regular doctor's appointments. The lesson we can all learn from Sarah is that taking charge of her health didn't mean sacrificing her independence. Rather, it meant accepting it and accepting responsibility for her health before things worsened. So ask yourself, have you been ignoring something your body has been telling you? Don't wait until it's too late. Your health is too important to ignore. Act now, you deserve it. Live a full, vibrant life, and that begins with listening to the whispers your body is sending you. As Sarah flipped through old photo albums in her quiet living room, she recalled a time when life was full of laughter, joy, and excitement. She saw pictures of herself playing with her grandchildren, dancing at family gatherings, and smiling in the sun. She realized that somewhere along the way she had stopped looking for that kind of joy, and that life had become routine and dull. Nevertheless, when Emily invited her over for a movie night, Sarah was hesitant, but something inside of her said yes, and that night, she felt a piece of herself awaken. The joy that had been buried for so long was still there, waiting to be rediscovered, and for the first time in a long time, she remembered what it was to laugh until her stomach hurts and her eyes well up with tears. Essential component of our mental and physical health, laughter is not just about having fun or playing games. It also improves circulation, decreases stress, increases immunity, and even aids with remembering. So Vende, as we get older, laughter serves as a gentle reminder that we can still feel youthful at heart and can help us accept the small pleasures in life. The act of laughing alone can create bonds and foster relationships with those around us. The next morning, instead of watching the news or letting her routine control her day, Sarah turned on her favorite music and danced around her kitchen. That moment of laughter marked the beginning of something beautiful, and it's never too late to make that decision for yourself. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Choose joy as we consider the significance of letting go of grudges. Sarah left Emily's house that night with a lighter heart, realizing that joy wasn't something you just stumbled upon, it's something you choose. Putting our health first and choosing happiness in our lives. Consider what you learned today and what struck you as the most important lesson. Perhaps it's the ability to forgive, the fact that laughter is actually the best therapy for the body and the soul, or the obvious fact that disregarding health indicators might have detrimental effects. Whatever it is, take a moment to consider one lesson you learned today that you will apply to your life. I would encourage you to share your thoughts in the comments section below. If you enjoy this video, please leave a comment. Additionally, remember to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more insightful content. Your support is greatly appreciated.